Hello. So I was just watching Carrie Coon Reed's book tag, where my lore started book tag video, and throughout the entire video she was like, make your own tag and tag me in it, and I was like, I'm gonna do that. That sounds so fun. So this is my where my lore started book tag, and yes, I am reading it off of an iPad. That's why I keep looking down. So basically, Carrie made this book tag. If you don't know who Carrie is, she's a booktuber who I love and watch all of her videos. And I watched this one and I was like, I want to do this tag because I've done tags before, but they're all shorts. And I've never actually sat down in front of a camera and talked about books before. So I'm excited to do that. I'm in front of my bookshelves, which I love very dearly. They're pretty basic white shelves, but I don't care because I love them very much. And yeah, so basically the Where My Lore Started book tag, as I understand it, is basically just a bunch of questions about books that you read as a child, or that shaped your childhood, or that you loved from childhood. So I'm gonna be answering those questions today. I put on a turtleneck because I thought it made me look smarter and glasses. I feel like I look like a scholar, except I'm a scholar talking about children's books today, so very excited. So we're just gonna start with the questions. Some of them I might have answers for, some of them I might not, and I might add some of my own questions because I can do whatever I want. The first question is, what's the first book you remember reading by yourself? And for this one, I don't have an answer because I don't remember what book I read by myself for the first time, but I can hazard a guess because I got into reading before I even knew how to read. How I got into reading was my mom would read me the Rainbow Fairy books. If you know them, I'll put them up on the screen somewhere. I don't know. Editing me will have to figure that out. But I have a very specific memory of reading Lucy the Diamond Fairy, or not me reading it, my mom reading it to me because she would read me part of the books every night. And spoilers for Lucy the Diamond Fairy, by the way, but at the very end of the book, Jack Frost, who's like the big main villain, comes in, and my mom was like, and then like Jack Frost showed up. Okay, time for bed. And I was like, Mom, you have to keep reading. You have to finish the book. You cannot do this to me. You can't leave me on this cliffhanger. And I'm pretty sure after that is when I started to read the fairy books by myself, because I was like, I want to be able to read them whenever I want. So those are probably the first books that I read. I don't know what specific book it was. I don't even know if it was that series. But I remember those books really got me into reading as a child, and I love them so very dearly, and I read a lot of them. Like a lot of them. The next question is, what character did you most identify with in elementary school? This one I don't think I have an answer for because I don't think I really identified with any specific characters in elementary school, like at least not book characters. Maybe I did with some TV show characters. I'm sure if I thought hard enough about it I would remember, but I don't remember. So next question. What was your elementary school comfort book? Probably the Rainbow Fairy series, as I mentioned, because I read them all the time and I read so many as an elementary schooler. Also probably the Whatever After series. I think I discovered the first one in 3rd grade, and then every time a new book came out I would go buy it and read it, and they're still coming out. The very last Whatever After book comes out this year, I think, and even though I've stopped reading the series, I still own all of the books. Let me get them. I got them. They were right there on my shelf, in case you couldn't tell by the giant empty space that's now right there. But there are a lot. There's a lot. I've read up to, let's see, the first one I ever read was the 3rd book, because I got that one first, and then I started reading the other ones. And I think I've read up to, I know I started reading the 2nd special edition. You can't even see what I'm pointing at. So basically, I'm dropping them all now, but I read up to This one I didn't finish, and this one I started but didn't finish also. So I think maybe the Beanstalk one, or maybe the Little Red Riding Hood one is the last one I read fully. But these books were super good, and I loved them, and I would always read them because they're about these two siblings that get transported into fairy tales, and then they mess them up, and so they have to fix them, and I love them. And I'm actually currently rereading the series because I found the French translations, and I'm learning French, and they're actually perfectly my level in French, so it's pretty great. I'm currently halfway through Cold as Ice, but the French version, and it's very good. So if you're looking for like French translations of books you read as a child that are your level of French and you're around a B2 level, read these. They're on Apple Books. So yeah, now there's a huge mess right behind me, so that's amazing, but that is my own fault. Hashtag no regrets. Anyway, so those are probably my comfort books along with the Rainbow Magic books, but Rainbow Magic was like younger elementary school and these are definitely older elementary school. The next question is, where or what was your safe space as a kid? That for me was probably just my bedroom where I could just do whatever I wanted. Like I could read, I had a bookshelf, and I only had like half of a shelf that actually had books on it and the rest was like other stuff. And I've since grown my collection, but some of the books in my current collection are books that were on my shelf as a child. Some of them are the Whatever After books, like this one that you can tell I've had for a long time because it's very ripped, and in very old, bad condition, but I have others that were on my shelf that I still have, and I also would make a lot of videos. Who would have thought? I mean, obviously I don't make videos anymore. Who does that? But I would make funny videos of myself in my room, and so I would just do that. And my room is still my safe space because I can do random stuff like decide to film a YouTube video randomly at like 9 p.m. on a Thursday just because I want to, and no one can stop me. The next question is, how has your taste in books changed since childhood? And I don't think it's changed that much. For one example, I'm currently reading this book right now as we speak. But also, as a kid, what really grabbed me was fantasy. I read so much fantasy. Fantasy was just kind of my bread and butter. Like, I read, obviously, these are fantasy because they're about, kids going into fairy tales, which I consider fantasy. They're children's fantasy. And then I read, obviously, the Rainbow Magic Fairies, which was also a children's fantasy. And I read some Roald Dahl books, which are also kind of fantasy. And I read the Inkheart trilogy and like Dragon Rider, which are fantasy. I don't need to say that every book is fantasy when I point it out, but like Magic Tree House that had, elements of fantasy in it. So basically, I was a fantasy girly. And I'm still very much a fantasy girly. If you look at my Storygraph stats, fantasy is by far the top one. And then like right below fantasy is like YA, and then right before YA is middle grade. So YA middle grade fantasy is still all I read. And I love it. But I obviously have branched out. I read some more like contemporary fiction and like, I don't know, books aimed at adults that deal with like adult themes that, 9-year-olds don't really understand. So yeah, I have definitely expanded my book taste because I don't only read fantasy anymore. And that's kind of all I read as a kid, but I try to diversify my reads a lot nowadays. But it is still mainly fantasy, and that is okay. Did you feel inspired to read by your school? And if yes, how did your upbringing encourage reading? I think we had a system of reading points, like accelerated reading. I remember the letters are AR. Don't remember what they stand for, but the R's probably stands for reading. And I would just read a bunch for that, mostly the fairy books and the whatever after books, as I previously mentioned. But that was in elementary school. I guess we can move on to like more middle school. Yeah, I would read. I don't really remember that much about the reading, but I think there was a form our parents had to sign to make sure that we were doing our reading. But I liked reading, so I don't think it was a problem for me. I don't know, maybe it was, and I'm just misremembering. I don't really remember anything about recording my reading in elementary school. But I know we read a bunch of books in school that I liked, and some of them, like, sparked my love for current series, but I think that's a question later, so we'll get to that. Tag that. But yeah, like, I remember in elementary school we would go to like the library and we'd all get to pick out a book to read, and I have this funny story where we were in the library. It was in like second grade, I think, and we were browsing the books, and they were all, you know, thin, like these books, very, very thin, very small. That's what we were used to. And I remember there was a boy in my class who went up to the shelf and pointed at this like super thick book, and he was like, "Whoa, that book is so big. I could like never read that. I would never read a book that is that long." And then I looked at it and I was like, "Bet I'm gonna read that book." So I checked it out, and you'll never guess what that book was. It was Dragon Rider. So having this one on the shelf compared to like these guys, and like that for a second grader, this was like crazy. This was like crazy hard read. But I read it. I had a great time. I remember really liking it. And then I remember in middle school, I tried to reread it because I was like, oh my gosh, I read that in like second grade. And then seventh grade me was like, I'm going to reread that. But I don't think I finished it. I got like a little bit through, and then I decided not to finish it. So maybe I'll read it now as an adult and see if it's good. Because I reread The Thief Lord not that long ago, and it was super good. And I reread Inkheart in high school, I think, or maybe middle school, and I really liked it. So I gotta give Dragon Rider another try, you know. What book have you wanted to return to lately? I know I keep putting up this book, but I'm literally reading it right now, so that's why. You can be mad at me if you want. But books I wanted to return to, let's see. Obviously, I wanted to return to The Hunger Games because the new book is out now, and I'm gonna go buy it like in like 2 days. I'm gonna go to the bookstore and I'm gonna purchase it. And I'm gonna read it, and I'm very excited. I think I read the original trilogy in middle school, and then I read this one in high school when it came out. I think I was a freshman when it came out. For context, I was born in 2005, so if that gives you a bit more context as to what years I was in these grades that I am referencing, that will help you. So I read this as a freshman, and I'm pretty sure I read these in middle school, maybe 7th or 8th grade, and I really loved them, and I reread them not that long ago, and they're super good, and I can't wait to revisit the world of Panem with Sunrise on the Reaping as soon as that one comes out, or it came out, as soon as I go get it. It's no longer on the book to come out. It's now on me to go get the book so I can read the book. I don't think there's anything else I've been wanting to return to necessarily. Yeah. Oh, there's another one. I want to reread The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane because my teacher read it to us in 4th grade, and I remember really liking it. And then my high school did a play of it a few years ago. But I still haven't reread the book. So I watched the play. It was super good. Loved it. It was amazing. I need to reread the book. I read Kate DiCamillo's other book that I own. She's written a bunch, but the other one I own is Flora and Ulysses, which I'd never read as a kid, but I read it a little less than a year ago, and I adored it, and it was amazing. Absolutely loved it. So I definitely need to reread The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane because I did read this one as a kid, and I think I will really like it if I reread it. And I know my friends really love it, so that's my goal to read next. Oh dear. No, give me the questions. Okay. Your favorite or formative YA series. This one is quite easy for me. In 7th grade, I started reading, drumroll, Keeper of the Lost Cities, and this was my favorite series for a very long time. I read, let's see, I gotta put it down. I have the stack of all the books. It's so tall. It's right here. Like, it's super tall. I bought the first book at Barnes & Noble with my mom, because she would take me there sometimes to be like, get a book, because you love reading. And so I got this one, and I remember vividly, I was like trying to read another book, because at that time I was reading like 7 books at once. I don't do that anymore. I read like 3 or 4 books at once. And I remember I was trying to read, I don't remember what book it was, but this was like on the floor next to me, and I kept looking at it, and I was like, I really want to read that book. And then I did, and it was amazing, and it became my favorite series so fast. The very next week I had to go get the 2nd and 3rd one. And when I first started reading the series, these are all out in paperback, and their spines are very broken. And all the books that were out were the first 6. So I have 6th one in hardback. And then I have the rest that have come out since then. 5 more have come out since I started reading it in 7th grade, and it's still not finished. Book 10 has yet to come out. There are 12 books, by the way, but book 10 is the one we're waiting for. Yeah, I loved the series. I still do love the series. It still means a lot to me because I remember I read like most of Exile in a single day, and my dad literally took it away from me. He was like, you are reading too much. Do something else. Interact with people. And I was like, no. And I remember he took it away from me. And I was like, Dad, shouldn't you be like encouraging your child to read? But whatever, I think it's funny now, but he was like, stop reading and come out and like actually interact with people. And I remember he took Exile away from me, but in my backpack I had Inkheart, which I was also in the middle of reading at the same time as this one. So he took this one and then he left, and then I literally just went in my backpack and I got out Inkheart and I kept reading Inkheart. And he came back and he was like, you're reading another book? And I was like, yeah, I read multiple books at once. So that is a very funny memory that I have. But so yeah, these books definitely mean a lot to me, as they were my favorite for a long time. And then finally, when I started reading more like different series again, because it was kind of all I read for a while. I know I said I was like reading Inkheart at the same time, but finally once I got to like high school, I started rereading some old favorites of mine, and I realized that I had other favorites other than this one. I kind of grew out of it a little bit. Not to say it's bad. Highly recommend. Even if you are my age, you should still read these. They're quite good, even if the series is dragging on a little bit, but that is neither here nor there. Another series I want to talk about is the Fablehaven series. I read Fablehaven in middle school, probably. I don't remember the exact year I first read it. I know I reread it about 3 years ago. Loved it. But I also read this one in middle school. It was super good. I read only the first series because Dragon Watch wasn't out yet. I also read Beyonders in middle school. Loved Beyonders so much. I am currently rereading Chasing the Prophecy is the one I'm on. I just started it. And I absolutely love Beyonders. I absolutely love Fablehaven. These books are super good, in my opinion. Unless I drop them, which is what I'm doing. But yeah, I definitely recommend these books. They're super good. I just love Brandon Mull's, like, the fantasy and the magic and the creatures that he comes up with. Just so good, man. Like, especially in Beyonders. Like, I remember when I reread this book, I remembered so many random details about the world just because they stuck with me because of how unique they were. So definitely recommend Beyonders and Fablehaven and Dragon Watch, which I didn't read in middle school, but I did reread in high school, my junior year. I finally read these because they were all out, and I wanted to wait till the series was finished before I started reading, because that's how I like to read my series. I don't like to have to go back and like reread books before a new one comes out. That's just not what I like to do. I like to just sit down and get through a whole series in one go. That is how I read. Except for this one, of course. This one, I don't get that luxury. This one, I'm waiting so patiently for the next book. Shannon. Please, Shannon. Please, Shannon. I've seen so many funny memes about, like, things I could do before Shannon releases book 10. And it's like, get married, have kids, retire, die of old age. And it's all in jest. It's all fun and games. We're not actually, like, bullying Shannon Messenger. Shannon Messenger, if you're watching this, I love you. Please don't think I'm trying to be purposely mean. It's just a joke. I understand she has, like, kids and stuff now. She's a busy woman, and she's amazing, and I love her, but I'm just saying it how I see it. Like, I started this series in 7th grade, and now I'm out of high school. Like, just say it. A book you had to read in school, but you loved. I have a couple for this one. First and foremost is definitely in 6th grade. We read The Lightning Thief, and I really liked it, and I read all of Percy Jackson, and I decently liked it. I was like, it was okay. And then I reread it a year and a half ago-ish, and I read all of Percy Jackson, all of Heroes of Olympus. I read the new Percy Jackson books. I read for Trials of Apollo, and I read Son of the Star, and I read Magnus Chase, which is on that shelf over there, so I'm not gonna get up and go get it, but I did read it, and I read The Red Pyramid, but I didn't read the other 2 books in the Kane Chronicles because as I mentioned, I prefer to read all my books, all my series in one go, so I had spent the last, like, 7 months reading just Rick Riordan books, and so by the time I got to, like, the Kane Chronicles, which is the only series that I haven't read as a kid, because I read the rest, except for Trials of Apollo in, like, high school. I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's been, like, 7 months of me just reading, like, Percy Jackson books, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I have to, like, read something else now, so maybe eventually I will finish that series, but I did not read it the last time I read all of my other Rick Riordan books. Other books, let's see, I remember in freshman year we got, like, a list of books, and we had to pick one and, like, write an essay on it. So I picked Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet. It's a World War II novel, and I really loved it in freshman year, and then I reread it a year, 2 years ago. I didn't love it as much as I remembered loving it, but I would still definitely recommend it. I think it's a really beautiful story, and I really like the characters. So this was one that I really enjoyed and got me into historical fiction, because after I read this, I read a bunch of other historical fictions that I absolutely loved. What else did I like? We also read, freshman year, we read To Kill a Mockingbird, which I bought my own copy of because I would like to reread it someday, because I remember really enjoying it, and I want to reread it now as an adult, and I can maybe try and understand it by myself and not have a teacher tell me what all the themes are. Maybe I can try to actually figure out what the themes are by myself, or maybe not, because I'm kind of bad at that, but I'm trying to read a diverse array of books. My weirdest favorite book, I don't know what my weirdest favorite book would be. I'm trying to look at my books that I have around me. None of them are really weird. I kind of stuck with pretty mainstream stuff. Clearly, like, I don't have that much, like, niche weird books that I liked. I don't know. Yeah, not really. I guess books with strange concepts would be, like, James and the Giant Peach, but this is a very popular book, but I guess this could be considered my weirdest one, because it's about a boy who goes inside of a giant peach and meets a bunch of insects, and they travel across the ocean in a flying peach. So I think that counts as a pretty weird book, even if it is quite a famous one. We read this I think my teacher read this to us maybe in 3rd or 4th grade, and I remember really enjoying it. And my other Roald Dahl that I really enjoyed a lot was Matilda. Also read this in elementary school and absolutely loved it, and I want to reread it, actually. I'm trying to reread some more Roald Dahls, because as you can see, I have a bunch up here, but I've only read a few of them. I recently read Fantastic Mr. Fox for the first time, and that one was pretty good, and then I watched the movie. And I actually liked the movie more than the book, which I know is kind of blasphemy to say, but the movie had a plot, and the book didn't really, so you can come for me if you want, I don't care. If your 13-year-old self could live in a fictional world, which would it be, and is it different from the world you'd choose now? That is a very easy question. It is very much the Lost Cities. 13-year-old me absolutely would have loved to live in the Lost Cities. Oh my gosh. And honestly, I probably want to live there now, because other than the spoilers, other than the Neverseen, like, they have a perfect utopian society where no one breaks any laws and everyone has like millions of dollars in their own mansions, and they work just because they want to. And they all have jobs they like, and they all have like powers. I don't live there, bro. Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? I want to live at Havenfield. They have like cliffs that overlook the water, and it's like beautiful. And they have all these cool extinct animals. I could see what all the dinosaurs looked like if I lived in this world. Girl, I want to live here. So it probably hasn't changed. This is probably the fictional world I would choose to live in still, because it's kind of a perfect utopia. I mean, like, the books are about them fighting the part that isn't. But, like, I want to live in a perfect utopia where I have a bunch of money in my own house and live for a long time. That'd be pretty awesome. Is there a newly released book you wish you had when you were younger? Not that I can think of. I guess technically I really wanted the 4th and 5th Dragon Watch books, because when I started reading Dragon Watch, only the first 3 were out. So I don't know if that counts. But other than that, I'm quite satisfied with the choices that I had to read as a child. And even the books that were out when I was a child, I'm still trying to read now as an adult. Like, for example, the Roald Dahls that I mentioned. I recently read Warriors for the first time, because I never read that in elementary school. I was not a Warriors kid, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. And I think that's all the questions. So, yeah, this was very fun. Thank you, Carrie, for making this tag. I love book tags. We should bring them back. This is where my lore started, and I probably forgot a bunch of series that I'm gonna kick myself for not even thinking of in this, like, tag, because I really was only thinking of the ones that I own that I could see on my shelf behind me, and as you can see now, there's a bunch of empty spots on the shelf behind me. If I think of any more, I'll put them up on the screen now and be like, oh gosh darn it, I loved all of these books so much, I can't believe I forgot to mention them. What a dummy I am for forgetting these beautiful books that I very much loved and enjoyed as a child. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching this random rambly video where I just ramble for way too long. But I had a lot of fun making it. And now I am completely boxed in by books. If you would like to see what my surroundings currently look like, I am very much surrounded. So, gonna have to put all my books away now. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time with whatever random video I post, because I don't have a brand. I post whatever I want, whenever I want, because I'm impulsive.